When talking about experimental probability, it's actually quite a simple concept. Experimental probability, to find it, you would say the probability of whatever that event is equal to the number of times an event occurs over the number of times the experiment is done. All right, that shorthand experiment done. Okay, that'll make sense in 1 second. The other thing we need to know in order to do this is that a simulation, like that word, you've heard it in other contexts, the simulation is a model used to find experimental probability. Think about like a flight simulator, it's something where you can practice it. So a simulation is where you create that probability. So let's think about the other probabilities we've learned. So if we talk about flipping a coin and I can either get heads or tails, there is a theoretical probability of getting a heads is 1 to 2. But an experimental probability is where I actually conduct an experiment to see how many times that occurs. So I'll give you an example. I know that the theoretical, meaning in theory, without me doing it, theoretically, getting heads would be 1 to 2. But let's say I were to toss a coin a bunch of times and see how many times I got a heads. So let's say I tossed the coin 50 times, and I got heads. 30 of those times were heads out of 50. So 30 heads of 50 tosses. Make sense? Okay, going back to what I said in the previous slide, to find the experimental probability, it would be the number of times an event occurs. So in this case, the event being the number of heads, right? So 30 over, and then the number of times the experiment was done. Well, how many times did I toss the coin? 50. Now to simplify that, of course, just like a fraction, we'd say it's 3 to 5. So my experimental probability of flipping a coin and getting heads was 3 to 5. Again, my theoretical probability was 1 to 2 because 1 out of 2 possibilities was my probability. Now in this case with experimental, I've actually done the experiment.